That's part of the process that creates resilience in pilots, is going through the training process. So good days, bad days, stick with it, right?
Yeah.
It builds character when you make it through something that's been challenging and difficult, right? It builds skill, it builds experience, all those things that are important that a pilot should have, right?
Hey there, welcome back to Above and Beyond, where excellence meets elevation. I'm your host, Jän Simon. And this season, we're raising the bar, diving into the passion, purpose, and defining moments of leaders who don't just aim high, they live there. Big ideas, real stories. Let's get into it. What if the thing you watched as a kid flying over your house every day eventually became the place where you learned leadership, discipline, service, and purpose? Today's guest is Captain Phil Green, a Mesa, Arizona native, the oldest of 6 children, and someone whose fascination with aviation started simply by looking up. Growing up beneath the flight path of Phoenix Sky Harbor Airport, Phil watched commercial airlines pass overhead and unknowingly began building a dream that would one day become a 21-year career in commercial aviation. But Phil's story is not just about becoming a pilot. It is about the path that shaped him along the way, serving a 2-year mission in St. Petersburg, Russia, studying criminal justice at Arizona State University, working through the demands of flight training, and eventually becoming a captain at Southwest Airlines. Over his career, Phil has served as a captain, instructor, mentor, check airman, mediator, hiring team member, and now as a leader helping develop the next generation of aviation professionals through Destination 225, Flight Path Vectors, and the FPV Foundation. Today, we're going to talk about the boy who looked up at airplanes, the man who earned his seat in the cockpit, and the leader who now helps others find their own path. Phil, welcome to the podcast.
Thank you, Jan. I appreciate the introduction, the nice introduction. I appreciate the invite.
Well, thank you. I appreciate you coming on. And so, Phil, let's take us way back. Way back.
All right.
If you can remember.
Yeah.
Young Phil.
Yeah.
Growing up in Mesa.
Yes, sir.
Probably looked a lot different than it does today.
Yeah, it does, actually. I remember when I was in high school in the early 90s on the radio hearing that the Phoenix metropolitan area just surpassed a million citizens.
Crazy.
And
Phoenix Metro.
Yeah, Phoenix metro area.
And it's like 7 million or 8 million now, something like that?
Probably, yeah.
It's crazy.
Uh-huh.
That's crazy. Is it the youngest of 6? Oldest of 6.
Oldest of 6.
Oldest of 6 kids.
Yes, oldest of 6.
All brothers? All
no,
sisters?
Mostly sisters. So 5 sisters and 1 brother.
That's
now,
why you dress so nice?
That's right. And now my parents were married till I was about 5 or 6 years old.
Okay.
And they split, they divorced, and got remarried.
Okay.
And so I had 1 full sister, if you want to think about it like that.
Okay.
So it was me and her were the first 2. And then my folks, through their new marriages, they had siblings, half siblings. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So I had a total of 5 sisters and 1 brother. 1 sister passed away about 2.5 years ago.
Sorry about that.
Yeah.
I actually remember that, so I'm sorry about that.
Yeah.
What was growing up in Mesa like for you?
So I enjoyed growing up in Mesa. We moved around a little bit. And so I don't feel like there's many native Arizonans.
It doesn't seem like it, at least our age.
Right.
Well,
you're right.
You're a couple years younger than me, but middle age.
I'm following you pretty quickly.
Yeah. Not too far.
Right.
I feel like the next generation, the generation of kids, in their 20s, 30s right now,
Yep.
definitely. But our generation,
Yeah.
like when I moved here in 99,
Uh-huh.
I don't feel like anybody was from Arizona. It's like very few and far between.
Right. And I get that a lot with work. I interact with a lot of folks being based here in Phoenix, a lot of fellow pilots, flight attendants, and hey, where are you from? Oh, from Arizona. You're from here? They can't believe it.
Like, what?
Everyone moves in,
Yeah.
right, to be based in Phoenix for my company. Usually the people that I work with
Gotcha.
move into Arizona like yourself. But 3rd generation, so my folks actually both grew up in a small town southeast of here, mainly east, about 2.5 hours if you take the 60 out through Globe and Miami.
Oh, wow.
Another hour in a small town called Safford,
Oh, okay.
if you've ever been there.
Yep.
Desert town in the Gila Valley at the base of a mountain.
Mm-hmm.
And I love it because all my family's there. And,
Yeah.
for me, it's always felt like home, even though I never lived there. So my folks grew up there. My grandfather on my dad's side grew up on a farm outside of that town
Oh, wow.
and rode a horse to school back when he
No
was.
kidding.
Yeah. So he's, then he went away to World War II, came back and brought my grandmother from Dallas, Texas, where I met her, and they raised their family there. And grandfather opened an old Western Auto.
No kidding.
And if you've ever heard of the Western Auto stores, at one point there were about 4,000 of those.
Yeah.
And they're kind of like a Sears or a precursor to Walmart. Started out in a catalog.
That is insane. I mean, to think, to really, I mean, wrap your brain around the fact that he truly lived in the Old West.
Yeah.
I mean, because Arizona's, we haven't hit 200 years yet.
No,
because Gilbert has just turned 100 a few years back.
Yeah, was it 1912 that Arizona?
Yeah, I think so. So it's like, yeah, I think you're right. So just over 100 years.
Yeah, it's not very old.
Crazy.
We just had our centennial
Yeah.
in Arizona not too long ago, right? Yeah, so that's my grandfather, businessman, who I became very close to. And the reason I'm mentioning this, it'll kind of segue into maybe later discussions about what I am doing and what I have done. Anyway, so initially I was born here in Mesa.
Okay.
And my grandfather had several Western Auto stores. He had one in Safford. He opened one in Clifton, if you know where Clifton, Morenci is. And so for a while, he had one in Clifton. And my folks, being young parents, we lived in Clifton, Arizona for about 3 years, which...
Booming metropolis.
It's a mining town. It's right next to Morenci, which is, I think it's the largest open pit copper mine, at least in Arizona, if not the world.
Wow.
I mean, it was at the time it was owned by Phelps Dodge, which became Freeport-McMoRan, or they were purchased by Freeport-McMoRan, and they're actually headquartered here in Phoenix. Huh. So we lived there for 3 years. My dad ran the store. He was young. He wanted to get into the golf industry. So we moved back to Phoenix so he could start pursuing golf. So it was my dad, my mom, and my sister, who was a year and a half younger than me. And so moved back to Phoenix, central Phoenix, near the airport. And actually, we used to go to Sky Harbor Airport back when it was much smaller, cheap entertainment. We'd go to the top of the parking garage and take some food up there and watch the planes.
No kidding.
Yeah. I mean, this was back in the early 80s.
Wow.
Before Terminal 4.
I would say probably just Terminal 2 and 3,
Yeah.
Terminal 3.
Terminal 3 was the hot spot.
No kidding.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
And so he started pursuing golf, which he became very successful. And anyways, my parents, though, they did divorce and split up. And he remarried, my mom remarried, and she ended up initially moving us to Chandler.
Okay.
So speaking of places that have changed, we lived at Cooper and Williamsfield, just down the street from Williams Air Force Base, which was open at the time.
Yeah.
And I know you've heard this from tons of people, but back then it was just stop signs all the way across.
The edge of the earth there.
Where we lived east, and it dead ended at the Air Force Base. It still dead ends at the airport, right?
Yeah.
So it's just farm fields all over the place there. Yeah. So moved from there, probably about 7th grade, moved to Mesa and northwest Mesa. So near Mesa Country Club is where we lived.
Okay.
If you can think of that, Alma School, McClellan area.
Yeah.
And initially went to junior high there and then Westwood High School.
Okay.
But kind of back to what you mentioned before, we were underneath the flight path of Sky Harbor Airport. So every afternoon when the flow of traffic, they were landing to the west, by the way, so the air traffic controllers don't have to look into the sun, so the pilots have to look into the sun when we're landing.
That's nice. Nice of them.
Right.
You put your visor down.
Right. We put our visor down. It's okay. It's fine. Anyways, but every afternoon we'd have that flow, that consistent flow of traffic coming in, and every time I'd look up, it'd either be America West or Southwest. America West, Cactus. They used to be, just like Southwest still is, kind of a hometown airline.
Yeah.
And then they went into U.S. Airways, merged with them, and American now, and so but Southwest still remains, in my opinion, hometown airline.
Yeah.
Anyway, so that was one of the things that sparked the love of aviation. I was always interested in it, though, and I'd mentioned that my folks came, born and raised in Safford. When my mom was 15, her dad was a pilot in the Civil Air Patrol.
Oh wow.
And probably earlier than that, but the point that she was 15, he crashed and died in a plane accident on Mount Graham, on a Civil Air Patrol mission, looking for a lost boy.
No kidding.
So I never met him.
Oh wow.
So I don't know if on some level
he's living through you.
I was inspired to get into aviation, possibly through his love of aviation, even though I never met him. Anyway, so grew up in Mesa and I went to Westwood High School, graduated in 95, grew up under the flight path, always loved aviation, and I had a friend of mine who I went to school with his kids. He was an attorney in Mesa, and he had a Beechcraft Bonanza VTOL, if you know what that is, at Falcon Field. It's a single-engine plane, and it used to be the choice for people who could afford it, doctors, attorneys, kind of like I would call maybe a Cirrus aircraft now is kind of taking its place in some ways, even though they're very expensive. So that was my first flight in a small plane, a general aviation plane was with him. My first flight in a commercial plane was 7th grade when Southwest Airlines going to San Diego. And so anyways, which ironically now I'm working at Southwest.
Yeah, that's pretty crazy.
Yeah.
My first flight I ever flew in was a C-140.
Really?
Yeah.
Is that the Starlifter?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
The transport.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yep.
So we actually flew from Spokane, Geiger. Is that what Spokane is? Geiger, I think, to Tucson.
Okay.
For fighting fires.
Oh, really?
That was the first time I was ever on a plane.
Wow.
Yeah. Literally sitting in the cargo seats that line each side.
Yeah.
And the latrine, basically a hole in in a cardboard box, it seemed like. But yeah, that was my first time on a plane.
And you fly out of the lushness and the niceness of Spokane and you drop into the Sonoran Desert.
Yeah.
Hopefully it was the wintertime. So
it was middle of summer. Was it? And we got to Tucson. There were several fires in Arizona at that time. We got to Tucson, got off the plane, sat on the tarmac in Tucson, and I think it was July probably, for like 4 hours.
Wow.
Trying to stay in the shade for 4 hours. Yeah. Then they decided to ship us up to near Prescott. So we got in a bus, rode the bus up to Prescott.
Yeah, which is a little bit of a reprieve from the heat.
Exactly. It was like, And then we were down here. I don't remember how long we were down here, but we were down here we were what they call an interagency crew. So interagency was the U.S. Forest Service, and then there was a Bureau of Land Management or Indian Affairs. 10 of each.
Okay.
So we're down here in Prescott fighting these fires, and these Indians, these guys that Native Americans that are with us, they're like hunting tarantulas and like collecting. It was the craziest thing. They'd like stick them on sticks and walk them around. And I'm a young kid. It's my first experience of firefighting.
How old were you at the time?
18 probably.
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
So getting out into the world.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was crazy. That was my first real true firefighting experience was Arizona.
Yeah.
And it was like, oh God, that was brutal. But then it got better after that. So did you play sports growing up?
I played some golf in high school.
Okay.
So my dad was in the golf industry, so that was kind of a natural choice was to pick up the golf clubs, and which is great because it's a sport you can play for the rest of your life.
Yeah. Do you still play today?
A little bit.
Okay.
Yeah, when I have time. I've got
which is not very, very often.
Yeah, right. I got a 17-year-old son who loves to play, so we'll get out and play.
Very
once
cool.
in a while. Every once in a while, I'll play with my dad still, who plays.
Nice.
Except for he stays up in Flagstaff all summer and plays up there.
I was going to say,
smart.
Better place to stay. Yes,
yeah, exactly.
For sure.
Yeah.
For sure. As you were growing up, and through the divorce of families, obviously some of that can be kind of a hardship type thing.
Yeah.
Was there a point at which you struggled with that separation and what life was going to look like on the other side of it? And through that, was there somebody that actually helped you along the way?
That's a great question. I think most kids at that age, especially 5 or 6, struggle with stuff like that. I'd imagine, and yeah, certainly did, right? And fortunately, I was, my dad was still in our lives, even though my parents divorced. We saw him quite often, and he lived nearby, and so I remember going over to see him every other weekend at least, if not more. The other thing, though, speaking of people, I feel like who helped us get through, or helped me personally get through that, I was really close to my dad's folks, who lived up in Safford. And so for all the holidays or, birthdays, summertime, I'd go there for 3 weeks and I'd stay with his folks. And just great people. It's kind of the unconditional love that, if you have someone like that, you can remember a grandparent or even a parent, that you're really close to. That was my relationship I felt with my grandparents. And
Gotcha.
So on my dad's side, my dad's folks. So
what kind of student were you in school?
That's another good question. So I was a solid B and C student in high school.
Okay.
Except for weight training. In sports, I got an A, which is great. But I after high school, I went to college for a semester at MCC, and then I moved over to Russia and went over there for 2 years.
Okay.
And I feel like through that period, it gave me some opportunity, and we can talk about that at more length. But I feel like I grew up through that.
Yeah.
And I became more serious about my academics and right now what am I going to do with my future?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like the reason I mentioned my grandfather being a successful business owner and my dad, very successful business owner in the golf community in Arizona, has been a part of the PGA here, Southwest section for years, successful company that they sold to Troon about 6 years ago. Anyway, so he's been very successful in his industry, and I almost feel like there's kind of a heritage of that, right? Hereditary to some level, to work hard and have some discipline and pursue your goals and your dreams and achieve success.
Yeah.
So I had some wonderful examples.
I think it's watching that as a kid growing up and seeing that, having that example set,
Yeah.
I think is important.
Yeah.
And I don't know, I mean, do you end up with with the thought process that there is no other way, right? I mean, the responsibility and however we instill that in our kids to make sure that, you show up.
That's interesting because where do we get our work ethic from?
Mm-hmm.
I feel like part of it you're born with, some of it you're born with, and some of it you develop and you learn.
Yeah.
Right? Because you want to achieve, you're passionate about things, you want to be able to provide, for your kids and your family.
Right.
So I think that all factors into it. But from an early stage, I feel like there's a lot of it that's through good examples. I used to go to work when I was up in Safford. I'd go to work with my grandfather and help him out around the store and do things. When I was a little bit older than that, I'd go to work with my dad when he would go to the golf course, work at the golf course. He was at, I can remember the courses he was at along the way at that time when I was kind of in the critical part of my teenage years. He was at Gold Canyon Golf Club, and he was the head pro there.
Jake and I just played Dinosaur Ridge.
Oh, did you?
Or Dinosaur Mountain.
Oh, nice.
Is that the same one?
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, we just played that.
Yeah.
Oh, my God, it's a gorgeous course.
Isn't it pretty?
So beautiful.
Yeah. I haven't played it in years. I'd love to get back out there.
I've played Sidewinder a number of times.
Uh-huh.
And everybody's like, oh, have you played Dinosaur? I'm like, no. And Jake said, hey, let's play Dinosaur. I'm like, okay, let's go. I probably took a picture on the first 9 holes because it was just beautiful.
Yeah.
Every time you turn the corner, it's like, oh, my God.
Well, next time you go, let me know. I'd love for me and my son to tag along.
That'd be awesome.
That'd
be fun.
That'd be a lot of fun.
That would be a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Oh, I had a question. It totally left my head. With regards to, well, let's step back. Talk to me about Russia because having served your mission in Russia, I mean, I find one thing quite fascinating with regards to the church, and that is that going on the mission and having that experience to go away, right?
Yeah.
Were you at all prepared before you went to Russia? I mean, how does that decision made?
Yep.
I guess.
That's
and then how do they prepare you before you go?
So I'll start from the beginning of that to answer that question. My dad, my parents were separated, lived in East Mesa in the orange groves.
Okay.
And when he was at Gold Canyon, his neighbor across the street, this segues into my career, his neighbor across the street was a Southwest Airlines captain.
Oh, wow.
And I hung out with his boys. In fact, one of them is Southwest with me. He got on Southwest about 6 months senior to me. Anyway, so I stay in touch with his boys, and he passed away, unfortunately, back in 2017. But that was a good example of an airline family and generated some interest. The reason I mentioned that family in particular is because I went to Russia in high school with one of his boys and the Southwest Airlines captain's wife.
Just like on a vacation, or?
She set up through her church. It was called the Cultural Homestay International.
Okay.
It was a program. And between my sophomore year in high school and my junior year, we went and stayed with Russian students and their families for 3 weeks in Moscow and Belarus and Minsk.
Wow.
Or Minsk and Belarus. And they conversely came back a few months later and stayed with us for a semester. And so that was my first exposure to Russia. So you're asking if I was prepared. After that generated interest. And for whatever reason, my high school, in Mesa, Arizona, Westwood High School offered Russian language class
No kidding.
for 1 period each day.
Huh.
And so I ended up taking Russian in high school.
No kidding.
Which, because I got interested in the language.
Yeah.
Like, it'd be great to learn how to speak that in case I ever go back to Russia, not knowing I was going to go back to Russia ever in my lifetime.
Right.
So when the application came around that you fill out to submit for your mission, you don't get to choose where you go, but you can put things like the languages you've studied. And And so that's what I put on there. And here we were in the mid 90s, and Russia had only opened up. Iron Curtain fell in '89, so just a few years prior. And I don't think there were a lot of missionaries looking to go and serve for 2 years who'd studied Russian language.
Yeah.
I'm just speculating. It wasn't a very widespread language.
Right, yeah.
Especially in Arizona. So
to kind of jump forward now, just because of a question I popped into my head, has the fact that you went to Russia in high school, served your mission for 2 years in Russia, learned Russian in high school, and probably honed a skill while you were there, has that ever impeded with your opportunities within the flight world? Because from a clearance perspective, I think about, obviously I feel like today we all have to have a bad guy all the time, right?
Yeah.
And Russia seems to be a great bad guy all the time. So has that ever gotten in the way of anything that you've attempted to do?
It's interesting you asked that question. It hasn't hindered or gotten in the way of that I know of. However, I'd mentioned the Flight Path Vectors Foundation that we started probably 5 years ago. Gosh, it's coming up on August. I believe it'll be 4 years in August. Senator McCain's son, Jack McCain, had a foundation, and they helped facilitate bringing 50 Afghan Black Hawk helicopter pilots and their families to Arizona to relocate.
Oh, wow.
When Biden, pulled everyone out of Afghanistan, because these families were going to be actively hunted by the Taliban.
Yeah.
Right. And so we worked with that foundation and got involved on the pilot side. Our intentions were to try and help these Afghan Black Hawk helicopter pilots who supported U.S. troops get their ratings here in the United States so they could get jobs in the industry and the field that they'd been trained and what they're passionate about.
And that's Flight Path Vectors.
That was the FPV Foundation, Flight Path Vector Foundation.
Okay.
The reason I mention that is when we were working with his son, Jack McCain's son. Why can't I think of his?
You mean John McCain's son?
I'm sorry, John McCain's son, Jack.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, you got to switch.
When we were working with Jack McCain's foundation, he had a board that was running it because at the time when we first got involved, he was still deployed in the Navy. So, anyways, long story. I like to joke. As you know me well enough to know, I like to joke, and
there are multiple times, just so everybody knows, Phil and I know each other let's say fairly well. We run into each other quite a bit because we're very close proximity neighbors.
Yeah.
And there are so many times where you'll say something and I got to stop and go, is he serious?
Yeah, I get that a lot. Anyways, we were on this conference call with people from all kinds of backgrounds. Some of them probably had worked for the agency or were currently working for the agency. But these people is a Zoom meeting. There's probably 15 or 20 of us on there, people with blacked out screens, and they get to me to introduce myself. And I don't know exactly how it was brought up, but I'd mentioned that I speak Russian and that I lived in Russia.
Oh.
And I meant it as a joke, right? Not because I think one of the Afghans actually spoke Russian.
Oh, okay.
And didn't speak English very well, so spoke, and so I was able to communicate with that particular pilot, who's an older Afghan.
Gotcha.
In Russia. Anyway, so I'd mentioned that, and it almost hindered the work.
Oh, really?
She paused the meeting. She's like, "What were you doing in Russia?"
Oh, no.
And I had to explain that. I feel like at that point I kind of stuck my foot in my mouth trying to be funny a little bit and interject some humor like I usually do.
One of those, just keep your mouth shut.
But as far as Russian hindering, that was as close as it came to hindering. And I have had the opportunity a few times to speak to passengers in Russian in the back of the plane. I remember in my previous airline, there was a miscommunication because there were some Russian passengers in the exit row and they couldn't understand English.
Oh, gotcha.
So our flight attendant comes up. She's like, "Hey, we've got some Russians back here who don't understand what I'm trying to ask them." I was like, "You guys speak Russian, right?" I was like, "Well, and as a matter of fact." So I went back there and I spoke to them, right, and helped out with that situation. But
that's so cool.
Yeah. It's very, very rarely do those two paths kind of connect.
What kind of perspective, looking back, because obviously in the moment there was probably a perspective that living in Russia for 2 years gave you and going through what you had to go through there. Mm-hmm. But now looking back, what kind of perspective does that give you as an adult on maybe what's happening on the world stage and how the interactions go with regards to, and I don't want to go too far down a political road because I try to keep that out of the podcast, but with regards to, how maybe the narrative kind of controls our thought process. I mean,
Yeah.
because I've never been to Europe, let alone Russia, but I've been overseas, and I feel like most everywhere, although maybe not as shiny and new as America is, it all looks pretty much the same.
Yeah.
I mean, different designs and things like that. The words are different. They might drive on the wrong side of the road. But from a perspective, looking back retrospectively, how do you feel that impacted where you are today and some of the things you have to deal with?
I am really grateful for that experience. It occurred in my life at a time where my mom was going through her second divorce.
Oh, wow.
So there was some instability, and I feel like it provided some stability and some growth opportunity and some perspective that I needed. And so I feel like there are a lot of blessings involved in me going, not knowing at the time what I was exactly getting into. Even though I'd been to Russia, when I first got there, it was still kind of a culture shock. Still, I'm lived here for 2 years and living in St. Petersburg I thought I was going to freeze to death.
I was going to say, was it as cold as they seem to make it seem?
It wasn't. St. Petersburg wasn't as bad.
Okay.
Because I feel like it's moderated by the Baltic Ocean there a little bit.
Okay.
I feel like maybe Moscow is a little colder, or maybe obviously Siberia is probably colder, or some parts of northern Russia. But so for me, I felt like it was very beneficial to go there and experience what I experienced in Russia on many different levels.
Yeah.
It gave me a big perspective shift. A lot of people don't realize when you're in, urban suburbs of a giant Russian city like St. Petersburg, we lived all around the city. We didn't just congregate and live in one place in the center of the city. I'd live with another missionary out in a suburb, right? In an apartment complex type. They didn't really have complexes. They were just big buildings, concrete buildings, a lot of them 9 stories tall.
Wow.
With just multiple flats. They call them flats over there. And so we'd be amongst the Russians. And in order to eat, in order to communicate, we had to learn the language, right? Which was also, right, a struggle. You had to be able to speak.
Yeah.
So, but there's a lot of some things that people don't realize about Russia. When I was there, at least, there's a lot of it that was borderline. I would call it not quite third world because it wasn't dirt floors or anything like that, but it was very poor and very primitive. We couldn't drink the water out of the taps.
Wow.
Because it had some level of contamination. So we ran the water through these 3-tier filters. None of our apartments had microwaves. We didn't have TVs. We had a telephone, and that was about as much technology as we had. We didn't have certainly didn't have portable phones or anything like that. Or pagers even. We didn't have cars or bikes. In fact, I like to let people know when I was there, we would rarely find a Russian family that owned a car.
Really?
Yeah. If you owned a single car, you're doing pretty well. Most of it was, all of what we did was public transportation, either our feet or buses or metros. And most Russians did the same thing to get around.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so it was, like I said, it was very primitive. It was a poor, even though here they are the superpower.
Yeah.
And they've got this mighty military, right? I feel like a lot of their money went into that mighty military.
Yeah.
Right. And into the hands of a few, because most, when we were there, weren't,
didn't have anything.
Yeah. And so that was part of it. The other big perspective shift for me was realizing when I got back how much opportunity we have here in the United States. You could almost look at it as opportunity overload.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many choices on what I want to do for work, what I want to eat, when I go in a grocery store compared to Russian small grocery stores. I walked into here and it was colorful and full of food. All the shelves were full of food, completely different.
Yeah.
Versus what I'd been living in the last couple of years. But just opportunity, and so for me, that's one of my personal, things that I don't agree about. Some folks, maybe a generation of folks, think that they have it rough.
Yeah.
And I came from pretty humble beginnings.
Yeah.
We were on my mom's side. I kind of had. This is kind of going in.
Yeah. Wherever you want to go.
Okay. on my mom's side, we were very poor.
Okay.
Very, very poor. Her second husband had, some addiction issues. We didn't have, job to job to job, didn't make a lot of money. On my dad's side, he was very successful. So I kind of had multiple perspectives.
Yeah.
And so for me, growing up that way, I've seen from multiple perspectives, then add in Russia, how how important it is to try and seize an opportunity and recognize the opportunity that we have to pursue things. Me coming from no one in aviation in my family. No, I paid for my bachelor's degree through ASU. At the time, it was much more affordable. I worked 2 jobs at my previous airline just so I could eventually make it to Southwest Airlines. I paid for flight school. I didn't have, and so working and achieving in America, you have opportunity to do stuff like that, in my opinion, in my experience.
Yeah.
And in Russia, I realized there just wasn't as much of that.
I would agree with you. I mean, and again, I'm not worldly traveled, so I am speaking out of one side of my mouth, but I do feel like from an opportunity perspective, and yes, there's differences. I mean, and I think I've said this on the podcast before, where I don't know what it's like to grow up in inner city and have to try to get out of inner city, right? I grew up in small little town in northeastern Washington, and but when I was 18, I'm like, I'm gone. I'm going for opportunity somewhere, right?
Yep.
So, and I didn't have money. I mean, I paid for college. I mean, it was basically, if you're going to go to college, you got to figure it out. And so but I always felt like my ultimate goal was to be able to give my kids more than my parents ever gave me. That was the thought in my head, right? Because we were the same. We didn't have a lot of money, which I now look back retrospectively and think, okay, my parents gave me a very balanced, loving family to grow up in. Although we didn't have monetary things, we were very blessed to have a strong central family. But I can tell you, I think about some of the path that my life has taken and the ups and downs and the ability to go smack your head against the wall, get knocked out, lose a few teeth, and get back up and go, okay, I'm going to get my teeth fixed. My face will heal from smacking the wall, and I'm going to go this direction.
And it's interesting. I mean, tell me your thoughts on this.
Go.
But it's interesting. I feel like my opinion is that through those struggles, through those hard times, that's where you gain your character.
Absolutely.
That's where you gain your resolve and your resilience.
Yep.
That's what makes you stronger. And I know that sounds a little cliche, but I feel like from personal experience, that's really how it's been for me. And it sounds like it's how it's been for you as well.
Absolutely. And I would say, I think there's 2 aspects to it. One, and I'll liken it to jumping out of a plane.
Okay.
The first time you jump out of a plane or rappel out of a helicopter, because I've never really technically jumped out of a plane. First time you rappel out of a helicopter at 250 feet, it's scary.
Yeah, I'll bet.
Right? The second time, it's not as bad. The third time, you're jonesing for more. You're like, let's go.
Yeah.
Do it again. Do it again. Do it again. Do it again.
But the first time, you're faking it till you make it.
Exactly.
Right?
Exactly. It's like, I'm not going to let anybody know that I'm scared to death to do what I got to do, but I'm going to do it. Right? And I feel like there is this thing with, and we'll call it failure. And I really truly don't like that word, because I feel like the only failure that we can ever accomplish in our life is to not try, to not get up, is to not take that next step.
I agree.
And so as much as it sucks, and man, I'll tell you, I've been in situations where I really truly was laying in bed praying to die, where then it's like you realize, okay, nobody's going to make this better but me.
Yeah.
No hugs from mom are going to fix this. No coddling from whoever's going to fix it. I have to take control of this, and I have to take the next step, whatever that is.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've gotten to a point somewhat, and I'm overgeneralizing, but somewhat in society where everybody feels like things are just going to be handed to them.
Yes.
And that is not the way it works.
That's right.
So anyways,
and I
send me down a tangent rabbit hole.
Well, and I've experienced that in aviation. Any pilot in aviation, they have to study, work hard. They got to earn their own ratings. No one's going to do it for them.
Yeah.
So every pilot rating and type rating consists of written evaluation, a written test, an oral evaluation, and a practical test where you're flying the plane. And there's no one that's going to do it for you.
Yeah.
There's really, I mean, you can't reach out, right? You've got an FAA designated examiner that's watching you.
That's looking for reasons to fail you.
You got to perform. You got to have the knowledge.
I say it's going into the exam of, look, I'm not here to be your friend. I'm here to figure out what you're doing wrong.
Yeah.
Because I don't want you in the seat if you can't do the right thing, so.
Yeah.
What type of responsibility was laid upon you as the oldest child? obviously split, so probably wasn't everybody together at all the same time, but were there additional responsibilities, or do you feel like you had additional responsibilities because of that position in the family?
I do, which is an interesting question as well. Like I said, my mom's second husband, who she had 3 more siblings of mine with, he was, he had a lot of struggles. So he wasn't a great example, wasn't a great role model at all. And so not for me by any stretch. And so he was gone quite a bit, out philandering, if you want to call it that, not in the home. And so by virtue of that, there's a vacuum there, right? And especially for my siblings. And I still feel like I've had partly a responsibility to be a good example and a good role model, and also to them, and also to put myself in a position to be able to help them, as needed, right?
Yeah.
And so I've always felt like that, being the oldest. And I don't know, maybe it was just a mindset from when I was younger, but I had my sister that was a year and a half younger than me that I used to always try and watch out for as older brother.
Yeah.
And so yeah, there was that, definitely.
Has there ever been a and this is kind of going to the dark side of that, has there ever been a part where you say you want to be in a position to be able to help them if you can, right? Has there ever been a situation where you've helped one of them and it's backfired and you just want to sit them down and tell them the what for?
Yeah, gosh, I mean, it could go deep on that. When I moved away and went on my mission to Russia, my sister was a year behind me in high school, and we hung out all the time. She was an example to me in a lot of ways. She was life of the party, cheerleader in high school. I used to hang out and date her. Some of her friends. Took a few of her friends to dances, and in fact, one of her best friends is going to be in town this week from Utah. And over the years, me and my wife have stayed in touch with her and her husband, and we're probably going to get together with them and have dinner.
Nice.
And when I hang out with her, it kind of reminds me of my sister because they were so close.
Yeah.
But anyways, yeah. So I don't know. I moved away, went to Russia, and while I was away, my sister ended up dating a gentleman that I would have never approved of, and I think she valued my opinion.
Yeah.
And it turned out to be probably one of the worst mistakes in her life. I hate to say it. It set her down. She had a possibility for a trajectory that would have sent her up, or sent her down. And this gentleman, I use that term loosely, but he put her down a path that wasn't good. And so I can only think, if I would have been around, and to kind of prevent that.
What could have been?
What could have been?
Yeah.
And I know you can't dwell on that too much because we've all lost people that we love.
Right.
And you kind of go there with your mind, like what I could have done differently to prevent a trajectory and a life path.
Yeah. Yeah.
But so that's. I mean, I didn't really. If I'd have been around, I wish I could have done something for her. So it's not necessarily that I did something for her and I guess I did something for myself and it kind of backfired, in that if I'd have been around, it probably would have
been different.
Yeah.
Let's jump forward. You went on the mission. You came back. You went to ASU. At what point did you think, I want to go into flight?
Okay.
Or did that come later?
Yeah, I'd always been interested in it. And I had to make a choice. So I went to ASU. I got a degree in justice studies, which is criminal justice, which is great for aviation. It's a natural segue into aviation.
I mean, it totally makes all the investigations you're going to be on in the cockpit.
Right. Critical thinking skills, all that stuff. So initially I was thinking I was going to go to law school. And I was working at the time that I was going through, after my mission, I was working for a process serving company that actually still exists here in Mesa area. A couple of friends of mine had a company, and I ended up working for them. And so part of that is I was going to attorneys' offices in the morning every day, and then you pick up the paperwork, then you'd go file it at the courts in the afternoon, and then you'd go serve it in the evenings. And it was a great job. It paid well back in, when I got married, in the early 2000s, late 90s, when I first started doing it, it paid well. But I knew that I didn't want to do it for a career. But the friend of mine that I'd mentioned earlier that had a Beechcraft Bonanza V-tail, who had a successful law practice in Mesa, he said, I'm successful, make good money, I'm burnt out. I'm putting in 80 hours a week, if not more. I mean, I'm always at work. I'm always attached to this office. It's like, if I had to do it over again, I've got a few friends that are commercial airline pilots. If I had to do it over again, that's what I would do. And so that kind of started me down that path. Because initially, like I said, I was criminal justice degree. I was going to go to law school, and that's what I was thinking. And that, that was kind of my 90-degree turn. And then, I had the mentor that was Southwest Airlines captain and his family, so I could ask questions. And I also had a friend that lived in my neighborhood. This is going to date me a little bit, but my wife and I, when we got married, we bought our first house in Morrison Ranch, a Shea home, brand new, 1,600 square foot, perfect location, perfect starter home for two young adults with no kids, $140,000.
Isn't that crazy?
It's. I wish I still had it.
Right?
Yeah. Right across the street from a park. Last house next to a green belt. It was just a perfect location. I wish I still had that house.
Yeah.
Not that we'd fit into it, but anyway, so yeah, I started. I had a friend in that neighborhood. His dad flew for Northwest Airlines, and he said, "Hey, what do you think about? If you thought about flight school?" I was like, as a matter of fact, I have. I'm interested in it. So we ended up. This is post graduating from ASU. We ended up going and looking at this flight program in Farmington, New Mexico, owned by a small airline called Mesa Airlines. And the nice thing about it was if you trained with them, at the end of the training, you had a guaranteed interview. Training was about a year and a half. And at the end of that program, you had a guaranteed interview to fly for them.
Okay.
And they have things like that now, but not quite. And the thing that made that different was I was flying passengers around initially with only 250 hours total time.
Wow.
Because you could do it.
Wow.
Back, this was 2005.
Yeah.
And now you can't. Now you have to have 1,500 hours for that same job.
That's insane.
Which is smarter.
Well,
right. More experience is better, especially if you're entrusted with people's lives, even if you're the first officer, not the captain, But at the time, you could do that, and this was the type of company that was trying to capitalize on that. So I left my job as a process server making $50,000-$60,000 a year, which at the time was quite a bit. The dollar went farther. And I went into flight training making nothing. And then after all that money that I invested in my flight training, I started working for Mesa Airlines, and they were paying me $20,000 a year. Gross.
Yeah.
That wasn't take home.
Wow. Okay, so I got to ask, did Kelsey stay here?
She went up there to Farmington with me. She's working as.
I assume it was Kelsey that you were married.
Yeah. 26 years, mainly because of her patience.
Yeah. You had good examples of staying in relationships as you were growing up.
Right. Yeah. Tongue in cheek.
Yeah. So what was her response like when you told her? Had you guys talked about this up until that point, or did you just drop a bomb on her and say, "Hey, guess what?"
She was pretty supportive. And I lucked out in that I feel like if you're in this industry, it's important to have a spouse that can be self-sufficient and autonomous while you're gone.
Yeah.
Independent.
Well, yeah, I would assume you're gone a lot.
Yeah. And I lucked out. It just so happens that she's that type of personality that she can function fine. Right. Now we live near her family and where she grew up here in Gilbert, which is nice. So we've been able to keep her, at least while I'm traveling a lot. She has sisters and her parents and things like that.
That's good.
Nearby.
Yeah.
My kids have cousins. But that really helped when I had that initial discussion about that career, because it's really a career decision. It's a lifestyle decision.
Yeah.
Right? You're going to be traveling. You're embarking on a career path where you're going to be traveling a lot.
Yeah.
And so, in fact, when I'm speaking to young adults and doing some of the mentor stuff that I do and have done in the past, one of the things I ask them, "Hey, are you married?" Quite a few of them married, maybe married with a kid. It's like, "Hey, if your wife ever wants to chat with mine and ask how it's been, my wife more than happy to give her your wife that perspective, because it's an important part of that decision.
Yeah.
If you're going to invest all that time and effort into this career path, to make sure it's the right one." And
when you're setting schedules or picking up flights, kind of along that same line of thinking, do you have the ability to, I don't know if it's bid on or just take or deny stuff that's around holidays, birthdays, important holiday things? Or do you get assigned and then you got to go find somebody to take it? Because
that's a good question. You do get assigned. Now, part of it depends on your seniority. If you've got good enough seniority, then you can bid around those things, your schedule.
Okay.
Especially holidays that everyone wants off. You know, everyone wants Christmas or Thanksgiving or summer holidays off. You can bid around that if you've got adequate seniority.
Gotcha.
My company, I think one of the things that makes it unique in regards to the pilot schedules is we have some tools in place and the ability to trade trips around with other pilots and with the company And post trips, if other pilots just want to pick up our trips and want to fly, because you get holiday pay, so sometimes that's an incentive for pilots. But we've got a lot of different tools that we can use to increase the quality of life. And this is the third airline I've flown for, and it's by far the best as far as quality of life because of stuff like that.
Yeah.
And as I've compared it to other major airlines, I think we're the most flexible in that department. We have the greatest ability to alter and change our schedule. But overall, the first and foremost, the biggest thing affecting that is seniority, pilot seniority.
Gotcha.
And there's seniority in the first officer seat and how long you've been in that seat. And then once you upgrade to captain, like I just did recently, now I go to the bottom of the captain list. So my seniority starts over.
Yeah. Nice little run on that one.
Right.
Farmington, New Mexico, which is a beautiful metropolis to live in.
You know what I'd like to say about Farmington? No offense to anyone that lives in Farmington and from Farmington. But the thing I'd like to say, the best thing about Farmington, in my humble opinion,
When you leave?
is its proximity to Durango.
Oh, there you go.
Because you're only 40 minutes from Durango, 45 minutes and Durango is absolutely beautiful.
Oh, it is.
Yeah.
It is.
Farmington's high desert. Durango's in
Oil and gas.
Yeah,
I think that's the
oil and
only
gas.
thing in
Yeah.
Durango, isn't it?
Yeah.
Oil and gas. But and it's not a pretty place.
I did like, though, the climate. That high desert climate, similar to
A little
Albuquerque.
cooler.
Yeah, a little cooler than or maybe
A lot cooler.
depending on,
Depending on when you're there.
Right.
Flight training. So is the direction you took, is that considered a traditional or non-traditional path in getting
Your ratings.
and becoming a pilot?
I think going to a flight school is on the civilian side, and that's interesting topic because you really can split getting your ratings into two categories, military or civilian. And within both of those categories, there's a bunch of subcategories to get your ratings.
Okay.
Right. And so I feel like, though, on the civilian side of the house, getting your ratings from a flight school is probably the most traditional way. It's usually what most people do, if that's a good way to say that. There's other ways to do it. You can go to an airport, to a local fixed-based operator, an FBO, and you can start taking flying lessons.
Gotcha.
And then eventually at some point get your instructor ratings and start teaching there. It just depends. And we, in the Flight Path Vectors, the company, the LLC that we started about 6 years ago, the main thing that we do is mentorship and try and give information and guidance. And that's one of the questions we get, right? We go over different options. But I feel like there's a lot of misconceptions with getting into aviation. Hey, can I do it? What's going to prevent me from doing it? There could be health issues that might prevent you from holding a first class medical, which is important to make sure you can hold that. That's probably one of the first steps if you're thinking about getting into it. Going to a designated FAA medical examiner and getting that examination done. It's about $200, $250. But make sure you can hold that first class medical, because that's what the airlines want. If that's your goal, is to end up at an airline, they want that first class medical. And that would prevent you early on, before you dump a bunch of money into flying planes and training. That would prevent you early on, give you the yes or no, can I do this?
Yeah.
The other thing is early on, I know you're not asking this question. Early on, though, what I would recommend is to, and what we tell folks is go do a discovery flight if you haven't flown GA, right? See if it's something, we all look up. I feel like a lot of us have some level of fascination of flight. Or maybe it's just me. Maybe I'm the only guy that looks up into the sky and have a hard time looking away when I hear a plane overhead. Yeah. My wife makes fun of me, by the way.
I'm the same way, though. When I hear a plane, it's like I'm looking, and usually I hear it over here, so I'm looking over here.
Yeah,
it's
especially with helicopters.
Yeah,
right?
It's like I know it's back there somewhere.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But one of the big things we do, kind of getting back to maybe towards your original question, is clear up misconceptions and try and give out good information so that these adults, young adults, whoever is thinking about getting into this industry can go in with their eyes wide open. I didn't really have a family member that was a mentor. I had the Southwest Airlines captain. He was military, so a little bit different path than I took. And so I kind of had to find my way a little bit through, some of the questions and potential pitfalls of getting into this industry and going through training. And so we try and lend that perspective. As a matter of fact, I was at the lake this morning, and one of the gentlemen there on the boat, he was 56, or is 56, and he said, man, I would have loved to have gone into aviation for a career, but I thought you had to have perfect eyesight. And that in itself is a misconception, maybe still to this day, that even in the military, maybe unless you're a fighter pilot, but if you're transport or bomber, I'm fairly certain military, it's correctable. You can wear glasses or contacts.
Yeah.
Certainly in civilian, if you have correctable vision, that's fine.
Interesting.
Yeah. And so that was just his misconception of, just not knowing 30, 40 years ago when he might have decided to pursue that path. Right.
Interesting.
Yeah.
When you were in flight school, was there ever a point at which you questioned whether or not you made the right decision?
Yeah, there was that question. There was the question on whether or not, am I going to be able to pass this? And am I going to be able to do this? Right. It's a lot of information you got to learn, and you got a lot of skill that you have to apply, and you got to pass those tests. You got to, and you got to make sure you can do that. And really getting those ratings is kind of a culling process, if you want, or a filtering, weeding out, however you want to think about that process.
Okay.
And by design, right? That's what tests are, and so if you can't pass those tests at some point, you're going to end up maybe not being able to pursue that anymore. If you have too many check ride failures.
Yeah.
The airlines don't look kindly on that. Maybe that's not the right terminology. You're not competitive, I should say.
Gotcha.
They're not going to call you in for an interview if you have too many check ride failures.
Gotcha.
Right. And maybe a couple's fine, depending on where you have them. But yeah, so there's a process. And I talked to so one of the things I do at Southwest Airlines, and I don't know if this is...
Go for it.
So in the airlines, my last airlines was SkyWest. The airline I'm at now is Southwest. I worked in some ancillary positions, which I think is great because it opened some doors. And
when you say ancillary, do you mean like office type roles or?
Yeah, it's not necessarily office, but for example, SkyWest Airlines. I worked on a team called Professional Standards. I also was a training captain, a check airman. So when we hired new pilots, I would fly with the new pilots, and they had to meet a certain standard. And at the end of flying X amount of hours with me, it was my role to evaluate and basically sign them off or determine if they needed more training. Right.
Okay.
The other thing I did at SkyWest was I was on the hiring team, and I worked with SkyWest had a pilot pathway program.
Okay.
And so not only did I fly as a line pilot, I flew passengers around. I did those other ancillary positions. Right. At Southwest, about 4.5 years ago, once again, got involved in some other ancillary positions. I started working in the training center in Dallas, teaching systems to new hire pilots as part of the FAA-approved program. So when you get on with the airline, you've got about a 2-month process, even if you've flown that same plane for years somewhere else. You have to go through that airline's FAA-approved flight training program. Usually it's about 2 months at major airlines to fly for them legally. And so within that program, I worked and taught 737 systems to new hire pilots. And now, more recently, I'm teaching in the simulators, a couple different events for new hire students, new hire pilots that we're hiring, and upgrading captains.
Gotcha.
And recurrent training, because we have to go to Dallas, 11,500 or 12,000 pilots. We have to go to Dallas every year for recurrent training.
Wow.
So it's a big production.
No kidding.
And pilots, maybe they go out on military deployment for a while, and then when they come back a few years later, they have to go through a certain level of re-education. Sometimes they might lose a medical for a little bit, or maybe they got to have shoulder issues or something like that for 6 months, or they broke an arm, or they got to come back for some level of retraining depending on how long they've been out. So the training center facilitates all that too.
Wow.
And so I work within that. The other thing I do, the reason I mentioned that, the other thing I do with Southwest is I work in their pilot pathway program, the Destination 225 program.
Okay.
And for a while, it took me to, when I first heard it, I was like, 225, what is that? That's just the cardinal direction for the heading Southwest, right? That's the Southwest, the direction is roughly 225 on a compass.
Okay.
That's why they named it Destination 225. Right? Okay. Destination Southwest.
Yeah, gotcha.
Anyways. So within that program, I speak to a lot of cadets, and you'd mentioned me going through training. One of the things that I like to tell these guys and gals, most of them are in their early 20s. You can get into the program starting right out of high school, so 18, 19-year-olds are the earliest. But I tell them, I say, hey, this training, you'll have good days, you'll have bad days. Don't give up. That's part of the process that creates resilience in pilots, is going through the training process. So good days, bad days, stick with it, right?
Yeah.
It builds character when you make it through something that's been challenging and difficult, right? It builds skill, it builds experience, all those things that are important that a pilot should have, right? That you'd want a pilot to have in the cockpit.
Yeah.
That's part of the process. So when you mentioned and asked when you asked me what my experience was like, what was your question? If
you ever felt like there was a day where you're like, did I make the right decision?
Yeah, there were hard days. There were certainly hard days. Like, holy cow. Almost like, you might have some imposter syndrome. Wow, I'm going to fly that? Especially when I mentioned that I was flying passengers around in 50-seat jets for Mesa Airlines out of Philadelphia with 250 hours.
Wow.
Like,
That's
little
incredible.
bit of imposter syndrome.
Yeah,
back
for
then,
sure.
Right. Although I'd been trained and I was perfectly legal to do all those things.
Yeah.
Right. But still, anyways, but I try and encourage younger folks. I mean, I'm 49 now, so like I'm getting to that point, right?
You're getting close to you got to stop doing it.
or where I'm using that vernacular. When I was your age.
When I was your age.
Right. And I hate to do that, but
it comes quick.
It does. It does. Cause I certainly don't feel, 49. My wife would argue that mentally, I'm not 49.
Like 21.
Exactly.
2.
Yeah.
Maybe a sophomore in high school at times.
Right. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Yeah. Talk to me about leadership. How has your vision of what leadership is or should be, or what a good leader looks like, morphed over time?
I feel like I've worked with a lot of great pilots, men and women, and I've had a lot of good examples. I've had examples of leadership in my own family, like I mentioned earlier. Grandfather, father were leaders in their industries and businesses, but within the aviation industry, that's one of the things I love about where I'm at Southwest. I feel like I consistently work with a high caliber of people. We've got all kinds of backgrounds. I worked with a lot of military, and I love it. Thank you to all of our service members. I'm pretty quick to thank them for their service once I find out that they did serve. I love the leadership and the experience that they bring. And I've tried to hone my own leadership. My leadership style tends to be servant leadership. I love to serve. I love to help others if I can. I try not to ask others to do something that I'm not willing to do myself. I try and help cabin crew out if I can, be supportive. Flight attendants in flight is what we call them. The flight attendants and or my first officers now that I'm a captain, and try and set a tone of, hey, we're one team.
Yeah.
And I think that tone and that servant leadership mentality, in my humble opinion, remaining approachable, right, and just like I said, working together like there's no I.
Yeah.
Until there has to be coming from the left seat, I should say, right?
Well, it's at some point. It's interesting because I think of that, and that's a great example where you have to, I feel as a leader, allow the team to feel responsibility in their positions.
Yes.
Right.
Yep.
Up into a point of failure.
Yeah, I agree.
And then it's like, okay, now I need to step in and take control.
Yeah.
Pull this back. Calm the situation, whatever it is, and then be able to go, okay, now we move forward.
Yep.
And once things are calm and stable, everybody goes back to their responsibility.
And I think another aspect of that you might agree with, I firmly believe in trying to give the members of the team what they need to be successful.
For sure.
Right? That's a big part of it.
Absolutely.
Right? And be supportive. What tools do you need to be successful in this situation? What can I do to make that happen?
How can I help you? Yeah. And I think that's important. I've been in multiple roles where, what I will consider a boss thought that they were a leader.
Yeah.
And all they're doing is dictating.
Yeah.
And it's like, just let me do my job.
Kind of micromanaging thing, or
exactly.
Yeah.
Trust me to do what I'm supposed to do.
Yep.
Until I don't provide you a level of competency where you can trust me. To do that.
Well, it's interesting in my industry with some of the things that I've done, not only in the cockpit but outside the cockpit, working within the pilot pathway programs, both at my previous airline and at this airline. That's a big part of what we do within those programs is we teach professionalism and leadership. Because most of these flight schools that you're going to, it's strictly you're working on your ratings, right? They're very good at getting you your ratings.
Yeah.
So we kind of fill in the gaps of everything else that goes along with becoming. And I just had this conversation last night with a gentleman that was reaching out because he wants to get into the Southwest, the Destination 225 program. And he asked, hey, what are the benefits of the Southwest Destination 225 program? And I said, well, we have workshops at scheduled intervals throughout the program to fill in these gaps, what I like to call soft skills for the airline industry.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people, if you're not in the industry, I don't think you realize once you're at that level, a commercial airline pilot, as a manager, as a leader, flying the plane is probably 30 to 40% of what you do at work. The other 60, 70% is what I call the soft skills, right? So it's how you communicate with people, your leadership, right? How you manage a team. I mean, there's a lot of other things that go decision making. There's a lot of other things that go into the job other than just what we call stick and rudder skills.
Gotcha.
Right. And so that's what I was kind of communicating last night to this gentleman thinking about getting into the program. He said, what's the benefit to the Southwest program? I said, well, if you want to come to Southwest, it's a great program. And beyond that, what sets it apart from other programs is all these workshops that we run as a part of the program. Some of them are actually in Dallas, where we fly the cadets. A handful of them, we fly them out to our training facility in Dallas, and we have 2 days that we put them through training out there.
Wow.
Before they're even on property as pilots, right?
Nice. Yeah.
Kind of helping them with all those soft skills, leadership, professionalism. What does that mean?
Yeah.
So
That's really cool.
Yeah.
That's cool that Southwest invests that
Yes.
in not only employees, but
Yeah.
people who might never be an employee of
Yeah.
Southwest. Right.
Well, and speaking of, Southwest is really good at hiring from within. If you have a desire to get involved or promote from within or do other things within the company, they love to do that. They love to hire from within. And so I've been at Southwest. October will be 9 years, so coming up on that here in the fall. And out of the 3 airlines I've worked at, it's been the best airline, and it's been my dream job. It's
Yeah.
where I wanted to end up.
That's cool.
And
That's awesome.
and so I for me and my family and my situation, wanting to live here in Arizona, we got a big pilot base here. It's been a perfect fit, and it's been. I know you're not asking this about the company, but one of the things I feel like that sets apart our company is the culture. I like to tell people that Southwest, especially in the flight deck, I'm on the pilot group, they've been hiring for a certain culture for decades. In fact, Herb Kelleher set that up. He said, "Hey, we hire for personality. We can train anyone to fly." That was Herb Kelleher, one of the founders of Southwest.
Wow.
That was his mindset, and they've done it for decades.
That's awesome.
And so I tell people I can jump in the cockpit with a complete stranger. Then at the end of a 3-day trip, we're friends. We've exchanged numbers. We stay in touch, and so that's one of the things I love about the airline is 90% plus of the time that happens.
That's cool.
Very rarely does it not happen.
Yeah.
So.
If you could go back and talk to your 16-year-old self,
Oh yeah.
what advice would you give yourself?
I would tell myself, make sure you go and you. I'd probably tell myself at 16 years old to study harder because high school was really much easier than college turned out to be.
Yeah.
Yeah, like the workloads, the study loads, all that stuff. So study harder. Let's try and be an A and a B student instead of a C and a B student. But I would also tell myself, go on your mission. I'd tell myself, hey, you can do this, right? I mean, I think there's an element at that age of uncertainty, right? What limitations we have as far as what we can do.
Yeah.
Right? You kind of gain that confidence as you start excelling and succeeding and kind of getting some wins, so to speak, under your belt, I feel like, has been my experience. So I would tell myself, hey, you can do this.
Yeah.
Right? Work hard, have discipline, and once again, work very hard.
Yeah. Yeah.
and you'll succeed.
You've obviously been very successful going the path that you went with the private avenue.
Uh-huh.
Do you ever feel like or wish you would have gone the military avenue?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. I wish I would have given, even though I did serve for 2 years as a missionary,
Yeah.
I wish I would have given some time in the service of my country. I think that would have been rewarding on different levels.
Yeah.
And like I said, I work around a lot of pilots that were former military. Not all of them flew in the military, but they have military backgrounds.
Is there a difference between Navy pilots and Air Force pilots?
Yeah. In fact, I had this conversation a week ago with a friend of mine.
Really?
Yeah, because we're talking about this friend I'm talking about. He's been tasked. He's a team member working on rewriting some of our pilot SOPs right now.
Okay.
And I had that very question from Air Force and Navy. The Air Force folks are very strict on verbiage. Like hey, it has to be done this way. This is exact, very regimented.
Okay.
Like this is black and white. You do it this way or else. Navy's more like, okay, if you get the job done, we can flex a little bit on exactly how you got to that point.
Gotcha.
Like it's more that was kind of the takeaway from our conversation. So hopefully I don't offend any former naval or Air Force aviators.
I'm all about it
because that's highly opinionated, and I'm not speaking from personal.
Now, okay, so I'm gonna be more direct.
Okay.
Landing a plane. Who's better, Navy or Air Force?
You know, the joke about the Navy pilots is they're firmer on their landings. Right, they
stick them.
They stick them. Yeah.
Set it down fast.
Then the Air Force guys tend to have a little more finesse. Maybe that's a good way to say it. Yeah. But I don't know that I've ever kept tally on exactly who's better. But that's been kind of the ongoing understanding of the two as far as landings.
That's funny.
Yeah.
I can tell you, having sat in now the back of a lot of airplanes, never flown one, but sat in the back. I always think in my head, okay, that was a Navy pilot.
Yeah.
Because I feel like I'm landing on a carrier.
Yeah.
It's like all of a sudden you're like, "Rrr." It's like, okay.
Or if you're flying to Orange County, Burbank, or Chicago Midway, you know, you could get that same feeling too because of the short runways.
Yeah. Or the noise ordinance where you got to go
straight
up.
Just talking about that this morning to one of the guys on the boat flying out of Orange County, that cut back.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah, at 800 feet. Yeah.
I got to ask, craziest moment on a plane. Can you share? I don't know if I can even ask you that.
We had a very interesting day at my old company, which I thought was never going to end. So in my old company, I flew different planes, Canada Air regional jet. And the one I was on this particular day was a 50-seater, CRJ 200, Canada Air regional jet 200 model.
Okay.
Like I said, only 50 seats, 2 engines up on the fuselage, not under the wings. Great plane for what it was. I mean, it was a little dated. It'd get very hot. The air conditioning system didn't seem to keep up with the heat of the desert. But my old company, I mean, and a lot of other companies, regionals, put a lot of hours on those planes. And I feel like for how much they flew, they're pretty decent planes. So this was years ago. We flew into Palm Springs, which in the summertime, very hot. And it took a while. We had a maintenance issue on the plane, so it took a while. We had to resolve that. So we're sitting out on the ramp under the sun. It was hot.
Yeah.
We didn't have passengers on yet, but we had a maintenance issue that we had to resolve. And then we boarded the passengers, and we had a cargo bottle in the cargo bay, self deploy, right? For cargo fire because of the heat.
Jeez.
And we had all these passengers on, we had all this baggage. And so now we had to deplane because you can't fly with baggage in the cargo bay without a suppression system, right? So we had to deplane, and it took a few hours. They had to cool that compartment down because otherwise they would have put a new bottle back there and it would have blown again with the heat. So they had to cool it down for a couple hours. So then we fixed it after a couple hours cooling that. We put the passengers back on and we left. We got off the ground without it deploying again inadvertently because of the heat. And we're halfway back to Phoenix, and it closer to Palm Springs, and it deploys. And that's another land at near suitable airport without that. So we had to circle around, go back to Palm Springs with those passengers who'd been waiting for. This was nuts.
You're gonna be all pissed off.
Oh my gosh. And so finally we get back to Palm Springs. They put those passengers on a different flight, and we got to wait another. We had a maintenance hangar in Palm Springs from our old company. So we taxied after we dumped the passengers at the deplaned to the terminal. We taxied the plane over the maintenance hangar, and then we fixed it there. Here we are, like almost 8 hours trying to just get back to Phoenix. And so we finally, and now it's an empty plane, and it's just me and the first officer and the flight attendant, so just the 3 of us in the plane, and we're flying this empty plane back to Phoenix, reposition flight. And as we're going to Phoenix, this giant haboob type weather system hits Phoenix. We had to divert to Tucson.
No way. Oh my gosh.
It was just one of those. I mean, we weren't very far from home, but
just give me a car, I'll drive.
We just couldn't make it back to Phoenix with this plane. Crazy. And it was almost laughable.
Wow.
You're not going to believe this. You know, as we're messaging company from the plane, because we've got the capability, or diverting to Tucson. And they're like, oh my gosh.
That's crazy.
So that was one of those flights that just wouldn't end.
Yeah.
Another flight we had, this was Arizona. Another flight we had was Phoenix to Flagstaff, which was one of our routes at my old company for American Airlines. We flew, these were American Airlines flights.
WestJet or something, or is it?
It was, so American, we were contracted to fly the shorter hops for American Airlines out of Phoenix.
Okay.
Yeah. And we're flying to Flagstaff, and there were so many storms. It was summertime, like monsoon season. There's so many storms between Phoenix and Flagstaff. You know, the Price is Right game Plinko when they drop the chip and it zigzags down.
Yeah.
It felt like we're doing that all the way to Flagstaff, zigzagging through around thunderstorms.
Wow.
And we're trying to beat this storm into Flagstaff that was coming in. And anyways, it ended up hitting the airport just before we got there. And I couldn't even slow the plane down to bring flaps out. It was so turbulent.
No kidding.
And so we had to turn around and go back to Phoenix.
So you got all the way there and then had to turn around.
Yeah. And now, fortunately, it's only a 20, 25-minute flight.
Yeah.
But still, you know, you have sympathy for the passengers who just want to get to their destination.
Right.
And so we waited out in Phoenix. We came back to Flagstaff. We landed in Flagstaff, and it was beautiful, calm, and clear, almost like nothing had happened. It's almost like the passengers are judging you like,
yeah,
it really wasn't that bad, was it?
Like, I remember one time I was in California, and I was driving, actually, and we were heading north. We got to Santa Clarita just before you go over the Grapevine into up into central California, and they stopped traffic.
Oh.
And we sat there for like 8 hours with traffic stop going over and it was stopped because there was snow on the pass.
Oh.
Which was like a weird concept in Southern California, going over the Grapevine, that there's actually snow, let alone enough snow to stop traffic.
Yeah.
They finally let us go over. The roads are dry. There's not a single wet spot anywhere, let alone snow.
Wow.
You know, and it's like, wait a second.
Yeah.
What really happened here?
It doesn't look bad at all.
Yeah.
You just sat there for 8 hours? Yeah.
Yeah, that was crazy. Any crazy passengers you've had to deal with over the years?
Knock on wood.
Next week you'll be deep.
Right. Well, they say that's the thing, is they say once you upgrade, and I can attest to this at my old airline. They say once you upgrade as a new captain, that's when you see some of the crazier things that you haven't seen before.
Because you start dealing with it.
Yeah. Yeah. And so, yeah, now I feel like you jinxed me.
Well,
you know, so yeah,
knock on wood.
Yeah,
Hopefully I didn't. I hope you go your whole career and don't have to deal with a crazy person.
Yeah.
But anything else? Anything I haven't asked you that you thought maybe we should talk about Phil and your journey? Would you do it all again?
Yeah. That is a good question. I remember when I was before I went to ASU, I went to MCC, Mesa Community College, for a little while. And I remember one of the classes I took, we had a guest speaker. I was just thinking about this the other day. We had a guest speaker who came in, and he was passionate about what he'd done. It was law enforcement. He was retired, maybe Mesa PD police lieutenant or something like that. And one of the things he said, choose to do something you love. And he said the money will follow. Right. I feel like it's important, especially in my industry, to be a pilot, to choose something you love, you know, to be passionate about aviation.
Yeah.
Passionate, because it's not a short journey. You know, it takes a while. It can take, some pilots can get to a major airline, and, you know, depending on the cycle, some pilots can get to the major airline in less than 5 years. For me to get to my dream job, it took 14. And I had to work 2 jobs to do it because of the cycle.
Yeah.
08, 09 downturn. They weren't hiring pilots. The retirement age around that same time was bumped from 60 to 65, and that was an immediate 5-year hold down.
Yeah.
And so I was at my previous airline for quite a while. But if it's something you're passionate about, something you love, that helps with your perspective. And you kind of get to a point, I feel like, where you enjoy the journey.
Yeah.
You genuinely enjoy what you're doing. Right. And you can, it creates resilience, and, you know, you can stick it out through those tough times.
Yeah.
And hopefully.
Well, right. Favorite airport to land in?
Oh, someone just asked me that this morning. Sorry. I keep on going back. We were talking a lot of aviation this morning to look at 4:30 in the morning when we went. There's some really great airports, and I haven't flown a lot of international. I've done Mexico. I've done Canada. I haven't done Caribbean yet, even though we fly to Caribbean. I haven't done South America. I haven't done overseas. most of what I do is domestic, and that's actually one of the things I like about Southwest is if something goes on at home, I can typically
close enough to get home.
Right, either that same day or the very next morning.
Yeah.
It's and I'm not traveling across 6 or 7 time zones, which is hard on your body, especially as you get older. So I like. There's been some great airports at my old company. I used to like to fly into Durango. It was beautiful. Some Montana, Bozeman, Missoula. I think it was Kalispell, Montana. I'll never forget at my old company flying into Kalispell for the first time coming up from the south. It was October, and is it Flathead Lake?
Yeah.
All the leaves around Flathead Lake were descending over the lake, and the leaves are all
orange,
and
like
reds.
the tamarack, just turning orange fire in the mountain.
Yeah,
I mean not fire lit, but yeah,
incredible views.
Yeah.
And we're descending over this lake into Kalispell. I'm like, what is this place?
Yeah.
There's certain times like that where you descend into some of these airports. You're like, this is a beautiful view. San Diego, I always like San Diego because it's a little bit steeper of a descent. It's a one runway airport. I think it's listed like worldwide as like in the top 10 of the most dangerous airports, even though because it's a single runway airport. It's very busy for a single runway.
Yeah.
But San Diego's one of my favorite places in California to go.
Yeah. Does Southwest fly to Hawaii yet?
We do.
Okay.
We started flying to Hawaii back in 2017, 2018.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So have been for a while.
And more recently, we started flying to Anchorage, Alaska about a month ago.
Oh, wow.
So that's kind of a new place.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Interesting.
Uh-huh.
Well, hey, I appreciate you coming on.
Yeah.
Taking the time.
Yeah, no problem.
Been good to get to know you and hear your journey a little bit, so I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Now I know a little bit more about you.
Yeah.
Everybody that comes on does get a gift.
All right.
And you can drink your muscle milk out of this.
This is great.
I have the same thing made for everybody. It is personalized. You go
Okay.
ahead and open it up and take a look at it.
Oh, awesome.
Glasses that went above and beyond.
That's awesome. I love it.
Got your name on the back of it, so
Wow, that is so cool.
Kelsey knows it's yours.
Yeah, so she won't steal it. This is great.
Yeah.
Yeah, thank you, Jan.
So yeah, well, thank you. I really appreciate it. I
Yeah.
appreciate you taking the time out and coming to share with me and the listeners a little bit about yourself.
Yeah, and thank you for the invite.
Yeah.
Appreciate it. Genuinely enjoyed it.
Awesome.
Yeah. This is Phil Green, and I went above and beyond.
We truly thrive.